In the Mediterranean agrarian society of the Gospel according to Luke, all the village women, mothers, aunts, sisters, etc., raised the boys and girls together, but only until the age of puberty. All families in the Bible are Mediterranean, and the strongest emotional bond in the Mediterranean family is that between mother and eldest son. This emotional bond gives the mother enormous power over her son's life, all the way through adulthood. Recall Rebekah's manipulative meddling into the lives of her adult sons, Jacob and Esau. Another consequence is that boys who approach the age of puberty are invariably spoiled. Remember, sons are the mother's social security in their old age, in this culture. Because Mediterranean boys are highly valued in this culture, all Mediterranean women pamper and pleasure them. For instance, in the Mediterranean world of the Gospels, boys are breastfed twice as long as girls, even long after he is able to speak. When he asks for food, he is immediately fed. This is his experience. Certainly, Jesus and all other Israelite boys, and all other Mediterranean boys, would inescapably conclude from this experience that his every word to women is like law. This is how it went for all circum-Mediterranean and Middle Eastern peoples for at least 4,000 years. A third consequence of raising boys and girls together to the nearly total exclusion of the father and other men during this nurturing process is that Mediterranean boys like Jesus enter puberty with an ambiguous identity. You see, because he had no male role model up to that point, he would not know how to be a man. At puberty, the first-century Israelite boy is unceremoniously shoved out of the comfort and pleasures of the Garden of Eden, woman's world, into the harsh and hierarchical violence of the men's world. Now all the men teach the adolescent his proper place and behavior. Often, this was accomplished by brutal physical punishings and beatings, which he is taught must be suffered in silence, without retaliation, without complaint. Certainly Jesus and all the males he knew in his life would have experienced this. And so also he would naturally conclude, as would all the male peers of his life, that such stoic suffering is one way of demonstrating manliness. In fact, haunted by Mediterranean gender ambiguity, the Middle Eastern North African Jesus and all his male peers would inescapably strive for Mediterranean hyper-ethnomasculinity, as recalled in the Passion narratives and really throughout the Gospels. Therefore, whenever reading this Gospel story found only in Luke about the 12-year-old Jesus at the temple, it is best read illuminated by this Mediterranean cultural backdrop. Why did Jesus' parents not notice that Jesus was missing until after a day's journey in the homeward direction north to Galilee? The adolescent Jesus was probably still in the severe Mediterranean process of transition into male adulthood. In the caravans, Israelites, like all Mediterranean and Middle Eastern peoples, traveled according to the gender divisions that permeated their society. Men and boys past the age of puberty traveled together. Women, girls, and prepubescent boys traveled together. By the way, did I mention the weakest emotional bond in Jesus' cultural world? That would be that between spouses. Marriages in this world are arranged, you see. And women and men, even married, live in very different worlds. Joseph probably sighed when he discovered that Jesus was absent from the company of men. Likely, he concluded that Jesus was still struggling with his transition from women's company and ran back to its Edenic comforts. In contrast, Mary may have proudly, if wistfully, believed that Jesus at last was with the men, as would be appropriate for a lad of his age. Only after a day's journey, when Jesus could not be found among male or female relatives and friends, did his family realize he was not in the caravan at all. When Americans of any stripe, Christians included, read Luke chapter 2, verse 41 to 52, so much romantic nonsense gets read into the text. Folks, we need to read these stories respectfully. And the first reading of the Gospels is Mediterranean culture. Last time we spoke about how Mary and Joseph lost their teenage son, Jesus. Now let's turn to when Jesus is finally found, according to the Gospel called Luke. Two things emerge from the Lucan report. First, the 12-year-old Jesus is meeting with an adult group of men, teachers, in the temple, and giving evidence of intelligent understanding. The author we know as Luke therefore indicates that Jesus has successfully made the transition into the adult male world. But the transition has other consequences that are evident in Jesus' dialogue with his mother, Mary. Look at Mary and how she reproaches her son. There's some personal irritation there. Son, why have you treated us like this? That's perfectly understandable. After all, isn't Jesus supposed to begin to behave like a responsible adult male? Obviously, he failed to inform Joseph, Mary, and all his friends and relatives about his intention, staying behind in the temple. In this group-oriented culture, such independent and individualistic behavior is irresponsible, disrespectful, and shameful. Please don't forget that the author we know as Luke, though he is an elite, is not an American. He's not a 21st century Western individualist. In his creating this story, he is bringing out something about the holy man Jesus. Then look at Jesus' response. You could hardly call it respectful. Did you not know? But that's equally understandable too. Something missing in the English is that the verb know Luke uses is plural. This indicates that Jesus is not only reproaching Mary, but also Joseph. Male maturity in the Mediterranean cultural world entails becoming liberated from the female control. A Mediterranean man, and that would include also Israelites like Jesus, wrestles throughout life with the tension between leaving female company behind, yet continuing to nurture the strong bond with his mother, which is, by the way, again, the strongest emotional bond in the circum-Mediterranean and Middle Eastern cultural worlds. Struggling now to trade his mother's tutelage for Joseph's, the Lucan Jesus is irritated by Mary's reproach. How do we explain Jesus' reproach to Joseph? One explanation is that he failed to keep a closer eye and stronger control over Jesus as an adolescent eager to take his rightful place in his appropriate, controlling, all-male group. Did Joseph not care enough about him? It is hard to raise children in any culture. It's never been easy. Sometimes the only thing that parents can do is to ponder the mystery and hope that the child will continue growing up into wisdom, maturity, and favor among human beings and holy and absolute mystery we call God.